Right, learners, let's look at stock valuation methods. Now, you will have been exposed to the fact that you've had adjustments where they did a stock taking and they found the value of the final stock. But before grade 12, those figures were always given to you. Now you actually have to be able to calculate the value. And because prices change over the time as people buy stock, you've got to determine what price you're actually going to value that stock at. Now, basically, we have three different methods. There's a specific identification, and it's exactly what it says. Here you will look at each individual item separately, and you will calculate the value of each of those items. Now, this will only work if you've got a limited number of goods and you're not selling these in very big quantities, and you can separate one item from another, and so you can keep records of exactly what you buy, what you sell, and what the value is of each of these items. Then we get the first in, first out, the FIFO method, and here it's exactly what it says. We go on the assumption that the first lot of stock will be sold first. The oldest stock will be actually sold off first of the items. So if you buy milk on Monday and then buy good milk again on Tuesday, your oldest stock, the Monday items, will be sold first. The Tuesday's items will be left behind, and those which will go into your stock valuation. The weighted average method is the one that the computerized systems, the Pastel and the QuickBooks, actually use. And under the weighted average, you find an average of those items. Now, the calculation of this is exactly the same as what you did with share capital. You work out a weighted average, and then you value the individual items. Just some general things we need to take into account over here, though, is when we're talking about the value, it's not only the purchase price, but it'll be any other costs as well. So if there is carriage, that needs to be added in when you start valuing your stock. So what did the goods cost? It's not only what you bought those goods for, but also any other charges. If there are any returns, obviously you don't have those stocks, so you must minus them out. Generally, when you return goods, you can't get a refund on the carriage. Now let's just think about it. They've delivered the stock to you. You've already incurred the cost. So you can't ask them to refund it because you don't want the items and you return it. So that's a general guideline, but you need to read the questions. And then, before we look at each one of these separately, another thing that does come up a lot is that after you've valued the stock, you actually have to work out the cost of sales. Now, this is going on the assumption that we were using the periodic stock, and I've already included a video for you on the difference between perpetual and periodic stock. The cost of sales is what was your opening stock, what was the value at the beginning of the year, plus any purchases and minus the returns, plus your carriage, import duties, customs duties, any other that you got, and then you minus your closing stock. So the value that you calculate up top here, once you've got that, you minus it away, and that gives you your cost of sales. So you need to know this calculation. Right, so now I'm going to follow some videos, but I'm going to relate them to specific questions in which we are going to look at these three different types. You can get asked any one of these in exam. In fact, it could be possible that you get asked more than one. So you need to know the difference of how to do it. Just quickly, the specific identification, as I said, will work with individual items, and that will be the best one. The first in, first out is the most appropriate method when prices are increasing, because you'll be valuing at the latest price. So it'll be the most realistic. The weighted average, on the other hand, will be used when it's impossible to separate one item from another, and you're going to actually take an average of all of the items. So let's focus on the individual questions on these different methods.